Sydney Sweeney recently threw some bras and panties at the famous Hollywood sign in Los Angeles because the girl has some underwear to sell. Sydney Sweeney and a lingerie brand? Groundbreaking. Allegedly from the heart, brain, and boobs of Sydney Sweeney. Yes, that was actually the way she presented it on her website. Introducing Siren. Siren is a new direct-to-consumer lingerie and lifestyle brand founded by actress Sydney Sweeney that aims to turn her Hollywood siren status into a successful brand. Sweeney is most famous for her acting roles and her well-endowed assets that seem to go viral every time she steps on a red carpet. She certainly makes a statement, or shall I say a couple of statements. Get it? It is a very clever move. One has to give her 10s because if anything, Sydney Sweeney is a very business-savvy woman, positioning herself and her famously ample chest front and center of her brand. She is not launching Siren as just another celebrity intimates brand like Skims or Savage X Fenty. Siren is specifically designed to include bigger-chested women who might not otherwise be catered to by traditional retailers. She has a niche that fits her perspective and retail experiences, and judging by her launch, I wish she remembered that purpose, but we will get into that a little bit later. So Siren is a lingerie line that promises inclusive sizings, and products are all under $100, which is great. Siren breaks its lineups into 4 style personas or different sirens, including the seductress, the romantic, the playful, the comfy, which is a little corny and juvenile to me, but I do get the branding decision. Regardless, Siren officially launched on January 28th with the seductress persona drop, and within hours the collection sold out, with some pieces disappearing almost instantly once made available. The rapid sellout was widely reported as a sign of high levels of brand awareness and a strong demand right out the gate. What definitely helped initial brand awareness was that little stunt on the Hollywood sign. In an Instagram video which included a tag for Siren by Sydney Sweeney, the actress along with the camera crew hiked up the Hollywood sign and scaled the side of Mount Lee to reach the iconic letters. She and her crew unzipped a duffel bag filled with bras and began draping them over the letters. At one point in the video, Sydney says, "I'm going to get caught at this rate," and at the end she poses in front of the bra-covered sign. Now, Film LA did issue a general filming permit for her crew to shoot near the Hollywood sign location, but not into the restricted area, but her team decided to pull off the stunt anyway for publicity, and it worked. So now we have a launch of a shiny new celebrity brand in a sea of many. Woohoo! But the big question becomes, is Sydney Sweeney's very ambitious business move to enter into the lingerie and lifestyle business to rival Kim's Skims or Rihanna's Savage X Fenty going to be a successful long-term endeavor? I will argue no, because of a lot of reasons, so let's get into it. First, let us get into the heavy investments into Siren. Siren is trying to look like a founder-led passion brand trying to solve a common problem for women, but it feels more like a pre-packaged venture capital machine wearing the founder's face and body like a skin suit. The founder image that Sydney is presenting is meant to feel organic and empowering, but Siren's business architecture has been highly engineered from day one. The company reportedly received major venture capital backing before launch. It has been financially supported by, I don't even know how to pronounce this, K2 Management's Innovation Fund, which has a high-profile backers like Jeff Bezos and Michael Dell. Sydney was seen attending Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's wedding in Venice, which raised eyebrows at the time about her connection to the billionaires and their power structures, but her random presence signaled proximity to major capital and suggests Siren has deep ties to billionaire networks. Sweeney and Jeff Bezos' wife, Lauren Sanchez, have also been seen together at high-profile events beyond the Bezos wedding, including at Sydney's space-themed 28th birthday party, where Sanchez was photographed among the other guests. It became really clear that the business and now personal relationship between Sydney and the Bezos runs deep. To me, it looks like a venture celebrity brand with a loose founder narrative layered lazily on top. Okay, so now that we got the boring business stuff out of the way, let's talk about the branding and aesthetics of Siren. Yeah, it's not very cohesive, and the 4 Siren personas create visual confusion on the website because the concept is not clearly distinct on the website, so everything feels like random images that contradict each other. At first glance, Siren comes across as a brand without a strong identity, throwing whatever image at the wall and hoping it sticks. The different sirens, like comfy, playful, romantic, seductress, resembles a strategy used by large brands to sell things through emotional and identity labels. In this case, the personas are very one-note, predictable, and hollow. Each persona is represented by a collage of recognizable visual tropes associated with that mood, like, for instance, roses for romantic, groundbreaking, boudoir bombshell for seductress, groundbreaking. Everything feels very derivative, overtly done, and boring, almost like a basic chick's Pinterest board brought to life. The seductress persona in particular feels like a direct extension of Sydney herself. It suggests that the real Siren is Sydney and not the consumer, and Sydney is the spectacle. Instead of the consumer stepping into the archetypes, they are forced to admire and be wowed by Sydney performing it all over the place on her website. It feels closer to celebrity brand worship than female consumer empowerment. Siren's branding centers Sydney so strongly that it risks the consumer becoming sidelined entirely, which is not great for sales. A bunch of aspirational celebrity images aren't going to create brand loyalty. Consumers want to know how they fit into the brand as well. And judging by the website, the story of the consumer is completely lost, and it seems like there's no place for them in the brand. The website heavily features Sydney to the point where it feels like an editorial lookbook instead of a fully functional shopping experience. And at times, it feels more like an Instagram feed than a retail platform. Now let's talk about that ugly logo. First, what is that and whose idea was that, and whoever it was, fire them, because that is one ugly logo. The logo barely is legible and is somewhat confusing. At first, it looked like a butterfly or a shapeless blob before I realized it is two mirrored S's in that hideous font they chose for the brand. And the spelling of Siren is not immediately intuitive. I pronounced it like SYRN, that laboratory somewhere in Europe, you know the one, and it takes a moment to realize it is a play on Siren, which is just confusing and very unnecessary. A brand name should not require that much decoding. And that alternative ironic spelling is an outdated trend that forces edginess. You are not being edgy, young, and brand disruptive by spelling something in a very unnecessary and confusing way. Baby, let's leave that to Tumblr. My main critique behind the website and the branding is that the people behind Siren need to put Canva down. They are using the hell out of their Canva professional subscription clearly, but it is a very Canva heavy vibe and it just looks very amateur and juvenile. The brand colors, which are this dark green and lime accent color, are confusing and not what I would associate with the Sydney Sweeney public image or a lingerie brand by the actress. The brand colors are oddly masculine, unsexy, and unappealing, and the aesthetic feels closer to a direct-to-consumer food startup than a lingerie brand. Like, those green color choices feel very specific to food and beverage brands. The Gen Z font and the dark green is giving that Graza olive oil or sweet green or a direct-to-consumer health food company. If you presented this logo and these brand colors to me, I would assume you're selling salad. I would never in a million years assume that you're selling me lingerie. The colors, font, and branding are incorporated into some of the pieces, like in the waistband for instance, and it's just very ugly, utilitarian, and masculine. Definitely not Siren appeal, definitely not bombshell like Sydney's trying to give. Although Siren positions itself as a size exclusive and supportive of fuller busts, the visual representation on the site does not strongly demonstrate that commitment. The majority of models reflect similar slim body types and bust sizes, which is an odd choice for a brand that wants to stand out for delivering solutions to larger chested women. Nothing about the representation of models on the site suggests that the brand is solving a gap in the market. Siren's inclusivity and empowerment reads more like a brand marketing tactic than a deeply embedded brand value, I fear, because the brand doesn't demonstrate how that inclusivity meaningfully shapes product design and representation. Like, come on, I've seen better bust size representation on Zara. Like, what are we even doing here? Like, what is the point of this brand if you're not going to demonstrate what makes you special? I just don't get it. I don't get why there's not different body types and bust sizes on the site. That's what makes your brand actually relevant to the public. But apparently Sydney and her team forgot the purpose of why they made this brand in the first place, or maybe that just doesn't matter and it's just a cash grab. And to make matters more confusing, when ordering, the website includes a bizarre reveal range slider that measures how much skin a piece shows. The slider prioritizes sexiness and skin exposure over fit, support, and functionality, which would be arguably more relevant for a brand claiming to serve larger chested women. What is happening? The slider really had me scratching my head, because if the brand is about sexiness, then stand on that fully instead of hiding behind empowerment language. Be honest about exactly what your brand stands for and why, rather than hide behind public-friendly language and social movements. If this brand is about Sydney Sweeney being sexy, great. Just be honest instead of using buzzwords to try to get in front of the right audience that you want to reach. Go and be the sexy Sydney Sweeney brand if you want to do that. But if you're trying to be about empowerment, then show that on your website. Show how the consumers are going to use these products, how these products help them. If your brand is about bigger chested women, I'm sure they don't care about the skin that they're showing. They want to see how these products are going to support them. What's not clicking, Sydney? And lastly, who is Siren for? The male gaze or the female gaze? Brand competitor Kim Kardashian built a loyal female audience over a decade that were obsessed with her makeup, fashions, and aesthetics. Her other competitor Rihanna built the same cult female following. Both cultivated deep trust with female consumers, and that's why their brands are successful today. Sydney Sweeney is someone who, let's just say, burnt quite a bit of goodwill with female consumers from recent controversies like the one involving American Eagle. The infamous American Eagle ad, which had the tagline, "Sydney Sweeney has great genes," went negatively viral across the internet. You could not escape it. It was condemned by critics as eugenics rhetoric and publicly applauded by the current US president. And social media did what social media does best, which is dig up her voting records, and her image then became increasingly linked to the president's party, despite her never once endorsing it, which damaged her public image among female consumers. There was a time, the North remembers, when she used to be more female-oriented early in her career and connect with her fans on live, but somehow along the way her profile grew and her branding completely changed, and she began to market herself for the male gaze. There is something to be said about seeking to benefit from her own objectification and use the male gaze on her terms, but it seems like we are way past that point, and she is taking a very active role in objectifying herself for fame, visibility, and a quick profit. For better or for worse, Sydney Sweeney is now largely known as a modern sex symbol, marketed heavily towards men, which is why it made sense for her to sell soap made with her own bathwater, but doesn't make sense now that she's trying to sell lingerie that will rely on female consumers. Some critics argue that Siren's promotional imagery appears designed to appeal to male sexual desire rather than center women. And And honestly, lots of the images on the website are straight out of a men's magazine without genuinely subverting anything or challenging norms. Even if framed as empowerment, the visuals resemble traditional imagery historically aligned with the male gaze. Even Siren's persona structure feels very male gaze coded. It's giving get you a girl who can do both, and highlights women who balance traditionally feminine aesthetics that cater to a male gaze. It's giving I could be anything a man wants me to be. One minute, I'm going to be this soft, romantic housewife, the next minute, a raunchy party girl, and then the next minute, this Hollywood bombshell. Like, let's get more creative, please. Do you have a job? Do you have hopes and dreams? Or are you just a fantasy for men? And overall, Siren feels less like a brand women might buy and more like a brand men might buy for women because they think Sydney Sweeney's hot. So in conclusion, if Siren is about sex appeal, stand on that. If it's about solving problems for fuller busted women, prove it. You cannot market to the male gaze and expect unwavering loyalty from women. No, you cannot do that, Sydney Sweeney. So what is Siren really? A personal brand Sydney Sweeney is genuinely passionate about? Or is Sydney an asset inside a larger capital machine propped up by billionaires? In the end, Siren might collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. So no, I don't have hope for Siren, and I don't think it's going to be a successful long-term brand because it's confused about what it wants to be and what it wants to do. A thing brands should automatically know before they launch. I hope the legions of male fans that Sydney Sweeney has cultivated come through for her because I just do not see the girls supporting her the way they support Kim Kardashian and Rihanna in their own brands. I think Siren is going to come and go. I don't see the brand having longevity. It just seems like a very convenient cash grab that's going to maximize Sydney Sweeney's sex appeal to sell as much as it can until it flames out. So that was Sydney Sweeney Siren. Moving on. Anyway, subscribe for more. I'll post more videos. Goodbye.